Who are you? Where did you come from? And what comes next? These are some of the most fundamental questions mankind can ask. The answer we provide ourselves to these questions will shape who we are and what we do with our lives. The answer to these questions are the difference between a meaningful life and a life lived in vain. But by what definition or standard do we derive these terms? The simple reality of this world we exist in is that all that lives will die. All that is put in order will fall apart. All that is tough and sturdy will rot. All that is strong will turn frail. All that one has will be given away. There is nothing new under the sun. So if a cosmic bang created all that we see today, if life itself came from nothing, if it rained on the rocks for billions of years, and you only exist as the mindless product of evolution driven by death, pain, and suffering, what possible explanation then could any person on this earth give that would justify the use of the word meaningful in the same sentence as life? The answer is, there isn't. This is the reality that has been written down as law by mainstream science. It has been preached to the synagogue to form a consensus. It has been stapled to the church doors that is the media. Man, woman, and especially the children alike have been forced to swallow it at the dinner table. Capital S science has declared God an idol not to be worshipped. The whole of the law is do what thou wilt, because life is short, or in other words, life is meaningless. But what if? What if you were created? What if God exists and what you do matters? What if you didn't come from millions of years of death, pain, and suffering? What if the earth is not a rock spinning through empty darkness that could at any moment be destroyed by a rock flying through the void? The very idea of God's non-existence embodied in the minds of the scientists and so-called thinkers? What if the whole world really is in His hands? God created the air you breathe, the sunsets you watch, the time you have, and the choice to either love that which gave you all of it, or close your eyes and pretend He's not there. And despite the fact that every last one of us have closed our eyes and denied the being who gave us love, all flavors of emotion, our senses, our thoughts, and desires, He still loves us. Every time you told a lie, cheated, stolen, put something else before God, you betrayed the one who gave you everything you ever had and ever will. And He still loves us. God loves us so much that He paid the fine for our crimes. God is not only loving, but is just. And as a perfect being that requires justice for evil that takes place in the world, every single person on this earth will face judgment one day. Our betrayal through our sin is an eternal death sentence, an existence apart from God forever. No love, because God is love. No good, because God is good. No hope, because God is hope. But because God loves us and wants us to be with Him, He provided a way. Our fallen nature was imparted to us by the first man, Adam. Since no human being is perfect and without sin, humanity needed someone to represent them that had no sin. Both fully God and fully man, Jesus Christ, Son of God, took our place in the judgment seat. The perfect man took the sin of all mankind, past, future, and present, and was sacrificed with it. Our sin died with Jesus, and our proof that God won, that our fine was paid, that our sin was sacrificed on the cross with Christ, is in the resurrection from the dead. We have been bought with a price. Atheism, evolution, the Big Bang, the spinning ball are all pieces of a story designed to rip you away from God. Part 5, the spinning ball. So I got about 6 reasons that the Earth cannot be a ball. Now, on the previous video I made on this topic, I had made 5 reasons, one of which I have since debunked, talking about Chicago skyline. But here we have at least 6. There is 7, but I'm not totally sure about one of them, so I'm just going to, I'll mention that one, but I haven't been able to find the quotes on that. So if I do, I will show you guys in the future. But the first reason we have for why the Earth cannot be a spinning ball is what you can see right here is the terminator line, the day and night terminator line of the Earth. So he took the flashlight, he put a lens in front of it to focus the light and make it parallel, so it's not like diverging, because that would kind of skew your results, right? And so he created this ball, made sure that the shadow on the wall was perfect and the same size as the diameter of the ball, right? And then he went on didnt.com, and didnt.com we can see the reality of when is what, like what time is the day, what time it becomes night for everywhere on the Earth. And then he compared that to what it should look like or on the ball, right? So you would think, well, okay, this should match this ball, right? But apparently it doesn't. So so here's a great example, is the Western Europe and Eastern Australia. And I'm sure there's plenty of examples of this, obviously, because you can take this anywhere on the ball that you want, and you're going to end up with the same problem, which is a 2-hour discrepancy. So we have Europe, or Western Europe right here that is on the Atlantic Ocean. And way over here, if you're looking at the mouse, I'll just zoom in right here like this. This makes more sense. If you're zooming, okay, so right here we have Australia, if you look at this mouse, and on the eastern border of Australia you see when it's becoming daytime. When the sun is setting in Western Europe right here, you can see that it's daylight, right? It's still daylight. And if you actually look on timeandday.com, I'll actually go there for you. It has a graph that explains what the shadows are. So at night you have total night, which would be the darkest one, astronomical twilight, nautical twilight, which is like if you're on a boat, and civil twilight, which is lightest shade before night. So here, and I actually went to here as well, because you can cycle through like 10 minutes every 10-minute increments to compare this. But what you'll notice is that Eastern Australia and Western Europe share daylight every single day of the year, and it's more pronounced at different times of the year, but as a general rule they share light every freaking day of the year, right? And then if you come over and you look at this ball, because he conducted this little experiment and created a light source, focused the light parallel like the sun should be, and then spun this ball and looked at these different times, he noticed that right when the sun is setting in Australia, you can see you can still see the light. So you stop the ball right there where it's exactly at that point in time, and go on the other side of the ball and look and see where where Australia is, and clearly there's huge gap. And you can compare this, and you can create this on timeandday.com, so you can replicate what that would look like, right? And you will find that there's no way, there's just no, it's a 2-hour discrepancy, right? So here's what it looks like on one side of the ball, right over here. Okay, the cat just knocked over some hangers. Hope that wasn't too loud. Okay, so on one side of the ball, you can see that it's daytime. Now, the only way to create this is to go like this. Okay, you have to. Oh, that's way too much. Other way. Okay, so another hour, right? And 10 minutes. Okay, so let's match it to where the darkness is right there. Okay, no, wait, yeah, so it's actually past that. So if we go another 10 minutes, and then yes, no, yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so if you look at this, right, you'll notice this is where, well, let's go back the other way, and then do 10 minutes instead, and then do 10 minutes again. Okay. So if you look at the time, you'll notice that there's a huge discrepancy in the time. So here they have here it's like this, and you can see the darkness, and you can see it's way into the daylight over here, and it's completely dark over here, and that's what it would look like. So totally doesn't make sense. Okay, it's impossible. So the terminating line on a ball Earth does not match reality. Now, what do we do with theories that don't match reality? We throw them in the freaking garbage. Okay, that's simple as that. Simple as that. If somebody can offer me an explanation, type in the comment section below. Give a good explanation, because there, as far as I can see, there is not an explanation. They share daylight every single day, and it is not possible on this globe. You can see that. All right. So moving on to number 2. Sun arcs south at the zenith of the day. I've made a video on this as well, but I'm going to include it in this evidence. Sun arcs south. So if we go over here, you can see this diagram. This is for the North Pole. Okay, so when you're at the North, I'm not totally sure if this is the North Pole. Okay, well, here's the point. I mean, this does look like it. So, yeah, that is right. Okay, so when you're in the North Pole, or if you're in the northern hemisphere of the Earth, and it's summertime, the sun, or the Earth is tilting towards the sun, right? So I don't know if you can get a picture of that, but whatever, it doesn't matter. You can go see that video. When you're looking at that, when you're looking at the Earth is tilting toward the sun, and the northern hemisphere is closer, right? And so throughout the course of the day, the sun is going to spin, right? And what you see is, what we see in reality is that the sun is arcing towards the south, but the sun is so far away. It is so far away. There is no way that movement is going to cause the parallax, right? Okay, so sun rises in the east, sets in the west, right? We notice that it's arcing south at different times of the year. And we don't really need to pay attention to the times of the year, because that's kind of irrelevant. All we need to pay attention to is the fact that during the day, every single day of the summertime, that's all we need to focus on. Every day of the summertime, the sun is arcing south, right? And so as it goes up, it moves south. At the zenith, it's at its farthest point south, and then it goes back towards the north as it sets in the west, right? Observable reality, right? That does not work on a ball. The explanation is not satisfying, right? What they're saying is that the sun, being 93 million miles away, let's remember, that the sun, that when you're standing on the Earth, you change position spatially, right? So like, say you're on the ball, and as the day goes on, once you hit midday, you're at the lowest point in space in relative to the sun. And then when it starts to set again, you're going back up, right? Back up the ball, because the ball is spinning and you're going back up. So spatially, you change position, right? And that is the alleged reason that it arcs south, is because of your change in position, which is parallax, right? You're seeing it from a different perspective. So that's impossible, right? The sun is 93 million miles away. Okay, it's not going to happen. And Lord Stephen Christ made a little video on that as well. There's definitely been some people that have made videos on that, but that's my take on it. So that is number 2. Okay, that is the second point, and I think those are 2 pretty strong points. The third one, also very strong. This is why it's in the top 3. Is fluid dynamics. Okay, fluid dynamics on a spinning globe. It doesn't make any sense. Okay. And actually, did I skip over stars or over that? I had some stuff up, but I can just quickly go into hurricanes and just have a picture here for you. So here's what we see with hurricanes, right? We see the movement of the air on the ball, and we can see that in the clouds, right? And the thing that doesn't make any sense is these patterns that we're seeing, how it swirls and how it forms these vortices like that. That is not possible on a spinning globe. And the evidence is experimentation that I will show you right now on screen. Okay? So what you're looking at is a container that is filled with a liquid. They put dye in it, they turn a flap, and then they watch and see that these vortices form, and it looks just like the hurricanes. Then they try the same thing, except they spin the container at a constant velocity, or speed, whatever you call it, and they see a completely different phenomenon, right? The fluid dynamics changes because of this constant rotation. And so instead of getting hurricanes, you get what we often see on Jupiter, these interesting looking shapes, right? And the colors don't mix. So that is pretty much, that's the proof that I have for you on that. And so obviously hurricanes are a little more complicated than a vortice in a liquid. You have the warm water getting sucked into the air, all that stuff. But as to how this rotation gets started, the sun is what's starting it. Whether you believe that, and I've already talked about this before with the hurricanes, but whether you believe that the Earth is rotating and the sun is fixed, and so that sun is creating this flap type effect, and then that's what happens. Or if you believe that it's actually the sun that's moving, it's the same deal. Okay, you're disturbing the air, you're doing all this stuff, and then it creates these vortices. All right, so I've shown this video before. I actually just found the original clip of it, which is from UCLA Spinlab. That's their channel where they do this thing that I was telling you guys about, and some other videos where they have a container, they put in dye, they do it, and it looks like the hurricanes, right? So right here we have this guy, right? And actually I just realized something that I didn't realize before about what I was talking about, which he brings up, which is actually a good point, which is his experiment is taking place as if it was on the North Pole or a South Pole, right? And so people are going to go and say, well, obviously you're debunked, Sam. Obviously, Mr. Unshaping the Earth, there is no way that what you're saying is true because it's the experiment is not on the side of the Earth where all the hurricanes happen. It's on top of the Earth, and obviously we don't see hurricanes there. It totally debunks your point, okay? Clearly, hurricanes are possible on a rotating apparatus like the Earth, right? Okay, we're going to debunk that in a few ways, but it's a fair point on the surface value at first, or as it would seem, but we're going to quickly debunk that. So going over here, they show the thing was it they show the hurricane, right? You can see how that makes sense, and then they show funnily enough Jupiter, okay, which is one of the main reasons that what they're saying is total bullcrap, whatever, right? They showed Jupiter, right? So if we go over here, we see them do this. So this is a stationary, right, as if it was at the North Pole, allegedly. Well, that's how it would work out. And you can see these vortices forming as if the Earth was stationary. And so they're saying that because it's on the top of the Earth, that therefore the air, which is the fluid, will not be affected by the rotation of the Earth, which doesn't make any sense, but that's what they're saying. So here we are right here. That's what we're getting. We're getting these vortices, and it looks just like it was not moving, right? And they show the comparison, and they have no idea that they're proving the Earth is stationary. Okay, then the next one is rapidly rotating vortices. Okay, and they go and they put it in. They're spinning it. They put them in. They rotate the flap like so, and then it shows you just like on Jupiter, right? Very interesting. Okay, so what is wrong with this? What is wrong with this? I'll tell you what's wrong with this. Okay, I have another thing to show you. Right over here. We're going to slow it down and get full quality and slow it down to 0.5 or even slower so we can really get it, right? And press play. What are we looking at? Okay, we can see hurricanes down here, but let's look at the patterns on the North Pole. Also appears stationary, right? See how there's vortices up there appearing every now and then? Okay, start from the beginning. So I think there's a vortice here, up in here somewhere. Okay, there's one. So we have these vortices, right? So what they're saying is that the rotation, since it would be on the side of the Earth where all the hurricanes happen, therefore the air is moving with the Earth, and it's going to appear as if it's static, right? This is as if you were on the top of the North Pole with it rotating, right? If it's rotating, this is what you should see at the North Pole. This is not what you see at the North Pole. This is what you see at the North Pole. Okay? That's one piece of evidence, right? The fluid dynamics should not look like this at the North Pole. And by the way, it was not easy to find this clip. It took me, easy is a relative term, but I don't see a lot of them showing the North Pole weather. Now, I'm not saying that there's anything behind it, but whatever. But clearly you can see that it's just like down here, except there's more weather pattern. Why is that? Because the sun passes over here more, obviously. You know, and in the ball Earth and in the concave Earth, that's the case. And so there's less activity like that over here, and it's way colder up here. So that would be, you know, making sense on both models. But it remains true that it looks like the first clip where it's stationary. That's what it looks like. Why? Because it is stationary. Okay? If it was moving, this is what you would see. And not only that, then you have Jupiter, which is the very interesting thing. Because you can see on Jupiter, it's on the side of Jupiter, right? See? It's on the side of the planet, right? And it's moving. So what is the argument here? There's no ground on Jupiter. It's all a gas planet. So therefore, the gas all spins in this uniform direction with the planet or whatever. And then that you know, this thing forms. I mean, it really doesn't make any sense, guys. It's ridiculous. So that's just a little bit more in detail on the hurricanes thing. So hurricanes, fluid dynamics, it totally disproves this ball Earth idea. I mean, let's play this freaking thing again. Look at that. Okay, they put in the dies. Put in the dies. Okay, rotate the flap. Oh, rotating. Oh, wow. Look at that. Look at that. That's what we see. That's what we see on the map, right? That's what we see on the map. We don't see this. This is not what we see, okay? That's what a hurricane should look like on a spinning ball, right? So, food for thought, all right? That was which evidence was that? Because I'm kind of going back here. That's evidence 3. So, the next thing we have to go on is the light starlight. Okay, so let's go to starlight. Here you can see these spinning lights, which are the stars, in a time lapse. Now, what they do is they take a picture and they do a long exposure, right? It's kind of like, have you ever seen Cars? No, kitty. She's trying to go and mess with the screen. If you've ever seen Cars, right, where they take a long exposure of the highway and you can see the streams of lights from the taillights and the headlights of the cars, this is the same thing. What they're doing is a long exposure where the camera just holds the sensor open, you have it on the right settings, and you can capture this star trail, right? And you have to be very careful too. They don't even use the actual button on the camera, right, with these DSLRs. They use a remote control button because you don't want these vibrations going into the camera when you take the picture, because you're going to screw up your star trails. All right, so, and that's how delicate it is. But you can see that it's all spinning around this fixed point, right, and does the same thing in the southern hemisphere and the northern hemisphere, which again, proof we're not on a flat Earth. Either the Earth is rotating and these are fixed, or that is rotating and we are fixed, which is obviously what I'm implying here. So, but here's the point of this, is that this proves there is no way that the Earth is rotating around the sun. And a lot of people have brought this up. She's on the computer. A lot of people have brought this up because if the Earth was moving, right, it'd kind of be like moving the camera. You know what I'm saying? Like if you're taking a long exposure and then you move the camera on the Earth, that would be the same thing as if the Earth was rotating around the sun, except you're traveling at 500,000 miles an hour across these huge, vast distances around the sun, and all the while, the way you see that light is going to change. And you would see that in these star trails, but you don't. You see perfect concentric circles. Now, that doesn't mean that the Earth isn't spinning. It just means that you're not rotating around the sun. So, and that is proof that the heliocentric model is absolute bullcrap. Okay? So that is my fourth piece of evidence. Fifth piece of evidence is the diverging light rays. Now, let me find a picture of that for you. There's diverging light rays. I'll probably bring up multiple pictures on the screen, but light rays from sun. So if you look on here, you can see this all the time. I mean, this happens quite often. You can see it plenty of times in the day, or especially in the afternoon. This type of thing, not possible if the sun is millions of miles away. You understand? Okay, you can trace back to it, and flat earthers make the same point, and I agree with it. I think this makes sense in my mind. I don't believe in this refraction bullcrap explanation that, well, the light is refracting when it hits the atmosphere and it's going in all directions. Light is not smart, and we say the same thing when we're talking about rainbows. Light is not intelligent. It can't perform perfect circles. It can't trace it back to it's not how it works, right? So it's pretty obvious. Okay, if you have a flashlight, you can trace the rays. If you have the flashlight in a misty environment or a smoke field like a concert or something, you can trace the actual light rays back to where it came from. Okay, so just imagine, you wouldn't believe someone if they told you that a light on a stage is actually 30 miles away. You could trace the light rays yourself, and your brain, with your mathematics in your brain, will automatically calculate for you, hey, that's not so far away, right? So the sun, not so far away, okay? And diverging light rays seems to be a pretty good indicator of that. And this magical explanation is used for everything from NASA, is refraction. Well, we don't know why there's two suns in the sky right now, but it's refraction. Well, we don't know why there's sundogs, but it's refraction. We don't know why there's a concentric circle of a rainbow around the sun. Refraction. It's all explained by refraction, and it's all bullcrap. All right, so 6 would be when zooming in on a telephoto camera lens. So I have a video for you here. This by Zenith Atlas. Check this guy out. He's actually pretty good. I don't agree with all of his evidence, but hey, we can all get along, right? So here he has the P90 Nikon camera, and it has an automatic leveling device inside of it, right? So this electronic leveling device in the camera says, okay, where is the camera? How is the camera oriented, right? Because the sensor is fixed inside of the camera, and what happens is it orients itself with the center of gravity. Okay, now whether we're on the inside of a hollow Earth and the center of gravity is in the center in inner space, or you're on the outside of a ball and the gravity is at the center of the Earth, or if you're on a flat Earth and the center of gravity is just straight down, your level is based on the center of gravity. Okay, whatever it is, perpendicular to the center of gravity. So this sensor can detect that, right? And so here it's green whenever he's completely level, right? So what he does is he zooms in with his camera. This is a P90 or P900 lens. It can zoom in very, very far on the horizon. And so what he's going to do is he's going to zoom in, and you're going to notice something very interesting that doesn't seem to make a whole lot of sense if we're living on a ball. Now, keep in mind, when you're zooming in with the camera, with the lenses, what are you doing? Okay, what you're doing is you have lenses inside of that tube that we call a camera lens, and it goes back and forth, closer and further away from the sensor. Okay, the sensor catches the light, right? So there's no possible way that any mechanical things in that would cause what you're about to see. Okay, so here we are. So he's perfectly level, and then when he goes and zooms in, it goes down into the water, into the ground. Now, does that make a whole lot of sense for a convex ball? Not in my book, right? If you're sitting on a ball, they actually say you're not even looking straight at. They say that you're looking out into space, basically, but you're so close to the Earth that you can't see that. It just looks like the horizon's right there. But some people, there's arguments about that. But the point is if anything, if you zoom in, you should be zooming in straight to the horizon, right? Because the Earth is curving down like that, away from you eventually, right? So, I mean, hypothetically, you would see the camera zooming up into the sky because you're on a ball. But because the Earth is so gigantic, you zooming in, that's not going to happen. You're probably just going to see the horizon, right? So, but that's not what we're seeing. That's not what we're observing. And so it kind of seems to indicate that the Earth is curving upward, and obviously that horizon line is part of this optical illusion of this dome over your head and the light bending upwards. So, yeah, pretty interesting. So that's my 6th piece of evidence. 7, which is the atmospheric phenomenon. So we see a lot of atmospheric phenomenon, and what exactly is going on, right? What are the explanations? So first we have rainbows, and I've talked about this a lot on my channel, a little bit here and there. So we have this rainbow, right, created in the sky, and we get this bullcrap explanation all the time. Talked about that in my videos as well. So we have rainbows, right? We have halos, which is a rainbow, but it goes all the way around the sun. Then we have sundogs, which is, sometimes these little lights on the edges actually look like suns. They look like 3 suns in the sky, and this is partly where these conspiracies about there being a second sun, and we're in a solar system orbiting around, the sun, and that there's this planet X, and aliens are coming, and all that crap. That's kind of where some of this comes from. Mostly the double sun phenomenon, but also the triple sun phenomenon. So you have this strange light patches on the sides, and then you have a halo, and it's quite interesting, right? So, wondering, how does that happen? And then you have some even more strange phenomena. There's double suns, which are pretty far apart from each other, and then there are these double suns like this. Now, this is real, okay? It's called Hunter's Moon, right? There's not a lot of it out there, but it's called Hunter's Moon, and it's this phenomenon where you have the sun, and they have what they allege to be the moon right next to it, and while the sun is setting, right? Just utterly impossible. Okay, utterly impossible. If you can just visualize the solar system in your mind, visualize the Earth and the sun, you know that a full moon from the sun is created when the sun is shining onto the moon, and it has to be behind the Earth. The moon has to be behind the Earth. If the moon is if you have the sun, the Earth, and the moon in a perpendicular L, you on the Earth are going to see a half moon. Makes sense, right? You're only half the sun or half of the moon is going to be lit up, right? And as you go farther and farther behind, the moon gets more full, right? And that's how it works on a ball. So there's no way that the moon could possibly physically be next to the sun and be a full moon and look like that. Okay, there's just no way. So there's an explanation, but the explanation they're giving is absolutely ridiculous. Then we have halos and sprites, right? It's high altitude atmospheric lightning, or high atmospheric whatever lightning. So you have these sprites, these little zips, and then you have this halo, which seems to flatten out. And they say that it's at the ionosphere or whatever, but obviously that's bullcrap again. Okay, so the rainbow obviously is caused by a glass sky. All these things are indicative of a glass lens up in the sky, right? Up high in the atmosphere. How thick it is, not totally sure. Never been there. Exactly where it is in the atmosphere, not totally sure. Never been there. Okay, but it exists, and this is the evidence. Okay, this is the evidence, because their explanation for rainbows are absolutely ludicrous. Their explanation is that the sunlight goes in the atmosphere and refracts off of the air, right, or water molecules or crystals, and then goes and hits another crystal and then is projected like this. Ridiculous, right? Why is that ridiculous? Because water molecules, cloud molecules, or clouds, air, it's not intelligent. Okay, it doesn't know, hey, I need to form a circle that looks like the sun. It doesn't know that. Okay, so what's going on is you have to have two polarizers to create a rainbow. The sun goes through a glass lens, something to refract the light, okay, into the colors, and then it has to be projected onto something, and then your eye, also a polarizer, sees it. Okay, that's how that works. That's how it works for sundogs, for halos, for rainbows. Okay, there's no other explanation for it, and it gets even more ridiculous when we get into sundogs, right, and halos, because how do you form a perfect circle like that with the light scattering in all directions from the crystals? If that's the only thing refracting it, that makes no sense, right? You're not going to get all that light coming to you in a form of a perfect circle. It just doesn't work like that. So the next thing, sundogs. Again, same exact thing going on, except it's even more ridiculous. Okay, they want to say that the crystals in the atmosphere, no longer water droplets or air or anything. It's crystals. Okay, so that's insane. Again, crystals aren't communicating with each other. Hey guys, form a circle. That's dumb. All right, and then obviously you have this interesting thing. So, and then we have these. Okay, this is like the glass lens. Again, it's causing this refraction. It's creating these double images. Okay, and it's very rare. It probably only happens in very few parts of the Earth at certain times or whatever. But that's another interesting thing. Okay, high altitude sprites, right? Lightning. This is, again, here's the glass lens, okay, at the Kármán line, at the ionosphere, which is it's been ionized, the glass, but it's high up there. The lightning goes up, and then it gets cut off, it splits, and it hits the glass, right? That's what's happening, okay? And I think Eric Dollard could probably provide a better example of or understanding with his electrical understanding, but honestly, that's pretty much all I can tell you right now. I don't want to say anything that's going to make me look dumb. So, the green flash. Again, green flash, they're saying that the air in the atmosphere is refracting the green light at a different rate as the red light, and so then you're able to see the green up high. And this is a rare phenomenon because it doesn't always happen. It just depends on the atmospheric conditions. And they're saying that, oh, with the temperature of the air, the fraction, you get that. Okay, well, as you're going to see with Christ, he's going to dispel some of this nonsense about these mirages that they're talking about. So yeah, we have the green flash. Okay, and now here we have this superior mirages, right? So it would seem fitting that if we're debunking the convex Earth and all that stuff, that we should, part of the title of this video is the concave Earth, right? In this part 5. So I'm going to go with the evidence that I'm going to go through the evidence that we do have for the concave Earth, which I'm be the first to admit there's not that much direct evidence, but when you look at the totality of what we're seeing with all this evidence that debunks the convex Earth, obviously we debunk the flat Earth, there's not much else that remains. We have 3 other models other than concave Earth, which is convex heliocentrism, geocentrism, still convex, and then the flat Earth, right? And then concave Earth. Those are all the models, right? So, and many of the things that we've been discussing in the previous clips show that flat Earth and convex Earth are not possible. Either way you dice all those 3 models, right? So it's kind of a process of elimination. The idea of when you eliminate all that is impossible, whatever remains, however improbable, must be the truth. Now, obviously, that's not a scientific experiment, and that's not evidence, but it is true, right? So, let's go through this. So, here is a piece of evidence. So, we're in one of the clips that we were talking about before. I'm not sure which evidence that was. We were talking about the stars, right? There's no stellar parallax as the Earth moves around the sun, which makes no sense. Well, here we come down, and I might read a little bit of that in a while, but we come down here, and he says, and I'm just going to read this pretty quick. It's a little experiment. It's called Aries Failure. How do we know it is not the heavens or space which moves above us instead of the Earth, which causes both the rotation of the stars and any of their hard-to-detect parallax? All right. We know it is the former thanks to an experiment in 1871 by astronomer can't even read right now, by astronomer Royal George Airy, which is this: if stellar parallax is too small to see with the naked eye, then why not artificially increase it? Okay, makes sense. So if we were really moving, we should be able to see the stellar parallax. We should, but if that's what their argument is it's so small, we should be able to increase it by refraction, which is what they try to do. So if the Earth rotates at a constant speed, by slowing down the light, by filling the telescope with water, the angle of the movement would increase. If stellar parallax increased, then the telescope would have to be tilted more to see the same star and prove a rotating Earth once and for all. And guess what? As confirmed by others, the most careful measurements gave the same angle for a telescope with water as for one filled with air. This is called Aries Failure. It has proved the rotation of the heavens and not the Earth, which moves stars. Okay, so that is a good piece of evidence. And actually, I also want to mention this Fauquelin pendulum, which came very soon after that, because this experiment was done in 1871. This one was done in 1885. So the heliocentric advocates were now desperate. Okay, who is this Airy? Who does he think he is? He's trying to disprove our idea. So what we needed was another observable experiment to still offer the possibility of a rotating Earth. Enter Fauquelin's pendulum in 1885. This pendulum swings back and forth, each swing moving slightly to the right or slightly to the right in the northern hemisphere and to the left in the southern hemisphere until at the poles one full circle is achieved in 24 hours. It does not move left or right at all at the equator. This is what they call the effect from the Earth spinning, right? But that is going to be disproven. As you have noticed, this is the same phenomena as the stars rotating every 24 hours around the polar star, which was proved not to be caused by the rotating Earth thanks to George Airy. Unfortunately for the heliocentric supporters, Falkland's pendulum also had a problem. In 1954 and 1959, Maurice Alius noticed that during a solar eclipse, which lasted 2.5 hours, the angle of the pendulum changed dramatically by 13.5 degrees. This has been repeatedly observed with positive results on most of the subsequent eclipses, which obviously means that the pendulum isn't registering the Earth's rotation but the motion of something else instead. So basically, the idea goes is that we have the celestial sphere spinning up there, and it has some kind of relationship with the ether, which is, this thing that pervades everything. And I guess this is the first time I'm mentioning on this channel with the ether. We're definitely going to talk about electricity in the future. I'm going to put some Eric Dollard stuff, and hopefully we can break that down and try to understand it. But the ether is this thing that exists in between space. It's not in space; it's between space or whatever, and it exists everywhere. Kind of like a fabric. It's a structure, right? It like if you have a magnet and you put the iron filings, you can see that it's structured, right? There's structure to it, or fibrous. They call it fibrous, right? So this ether is moving, and it does things, and this is what is causing this word, the Coriolis effect. Okay, and he kind of disproves it over here as well, which is the Coriolis effect allegedly causes things to rotate counterclockwise, like in the north, and clockwise in the south or something. I'm not sure if I'm getting that mixed up or not, but they say that it's a optical illusion, but clearly it's not an optical illusion. We could see that these things exist. So anyways, I don't know if he's getting mixed up with that, but anyways, so okay, so let's go back to this a little bit. I already talked about this, but I'll just read this experiment real quick that was conducted by Samuel Rowbotham of Zetetic Astronomy. So, okay, he says, so this you may think is a good case for rotating Earth, but on its own, it is also a good case for a geocentric one, right? That's what I have been saying, as it demonstrates that either the Earth is moving or the heavens. However, after 6 months, those exact same stars are at the exact same location, as can be seen with the naked eye, at which they had been 6 months previously. Okay, so in his experiment, he says, take 2 carefully bored metallic tubes, not less than 6 feet in length, and place them 1 yard asunder on the opposite sides of a wooden frame, or a solid block of wood or stone. So adjust them that their centers or axis of vision shall be perfectly parallel to each other. Now direct them to the plane of some notable fixed star, a few seconds previous to its meridian time. Let an observer be stationed at each tube, and the moment the star appears in the first tube, let out a loud knock or signal to be given, to be repeated by the observer at the second tube when the first sees the same star. A distinct period of time will elapse between the signals given. The signals will follow each other in very rapid succession, but still the time between is sufficient to show that the same star is not visible at the same moment by 2 parallel lines of sight when only 1 yard asunder. Okay, a slight inclination of the second tube towards the first tube would be required for the star to be seen through both tubes at the same time. Okay, so are we understanding here? Okay, so we have 2 parallel tubes, right? We're seeing the star move across, okay? And so the guy looks through the hole and calls out when he sees it go through his hole. The other guy, which it's 1 yard asunder, or 1 yard this way, I guess is what he was trying to say. He's looking, and he also calls out, and then we can measure the difference in time. If they wanted to see the star at the same time, the only way to do that is for one of the tubes to be no longer parallel, but angled towards the other tube, right? Okay. So, so now he says, a slight inclination of the second tube towards the first would require for the star to be seen through both tubes at the same time. Okay, so let the tubes remain in their position for 6 months. So just walk away, come back 6 months later, and at the end of which time the same observation or experiment will produce the same results. So he's saying, hey, we've done this experiment, we get the same exact results 6 months later. The star will be visible at the same meridian time without the slightest alteration being required in the direction of the tubes, from which it is concluded that if the Earth had moved 1 single yard in an orbit through space, there would at least be observed the slightest inclination of the tube, which the difference in position of 1 yard had previously required. But as no such difference in the direction of the tube is required, the conclusion is unavoidable that in 6 months a given meridian upon the Earth's surface does not move a single yard, and therefore that the Earth has not the slightest degree of orbital motion. Okay, so pretty good experiment, don't you think? So we've now been able to prove that either the Earth is rotating and the stars are fixed, and we're not orbiting around the sun, or we've proven that through the fact that it can't be moving, that it's not moving around the sun. And then over here, we have proven through the Aries Failure experiment that it cannot be the Earth that is moving. It's not the Earth that is moving, it is the stars. Okay, so this is very good. I don't know if you'd say circumstantial, but indirect evidence that the Earth is concave. Okay, because somebody have these parameters and explain to me another model that isn't convex and that it isn't flat and that isn't concave that can explain this. I don't think you will find one. So that was the first little piece of evidence here, and then let's see, what else do we got? Oh yeah, so if we go back to what we were talking about before with the Okay, so if we go back to these phenomenon that we were previously talking about, which is obviously evidence that the Earth is not a ball, it interestingly enough doubles as evidence for the concave Earth. Now, obviously, as I said before, these aren't direct evidences of concave Earth. You can't point to this and say, oh, this is proof 100% without a doubt that the Earth has to be concave, because there could be other theories that we could come up with that may possibly explain this. I can't think of any. I don't think there is one, but if you're going to prove the shape of the Earth, you need to do it with a measuring stick. You know what I'm saying? Metaphorically, not this type of evidence. So, but in looking at this, we obviously know that this is not happening on a convex ball. It's definitely not happening on a flat Earth either. The way they have everything set up, it's just that doesn't make any sense either. They can't map out the stars on on a flat Earth, and I say that with ad nauseum, because that's one of the best things I can say to anybody if I'm going to talk to them about the flat Earth is, okay, where are the southern stars? How does that work? You're not going to give me a good explanation, right? But it doesn't work on a flat Earth, doesn't work on a convex Earth. So what it does work, however, is in a concave Earth where the sun is at the center, the light is bending out, it's refracting through the glass lenses, and it's creating these things, right? Same thing with the Hunter's moon and birefringence. You're not going to see this on a ball Earth. You're not going to see this on a flat Earth. You're only going to see this in a concave Earth. It only works with the glass lenses, and that's the only way it works, right? And then you have double rainbows, right? Right, double rainbows. So again, rainbows don't even work on a ball Earth, and they definitely, these are two concentric spheres of glass that are creating these two rainbows like that. that is indicative of a concave Earth. Once again, there's no way it's coming from a flat Earth. There's no way it's coming from a convex Earth. All right. So I mean, if we wanted to prove the shape of the Earth, undeniably, the most easy, simple way to do it, eliminating the most amount of variables, would be with this guy right here.
Hi, I'm Brian Mullins.
Brian Mullins, with his fourth line experiment. In the background, you can see what that looks like, right? So, and like I said, I made a video on this already. You can go check that one out as well, the fourth line experiment. But I totally agree with anybody who's skeptical. Anybody who's skeptical on the concave Earth, I agree. We do not have a lot of direct evidence. Okay, we don't have a lot of direct evidence, but we have a lot of circumstantial evidence. We have a lot of evidence that says, look, we've eliminated what can't be, and so this is pretty much all that remains. Now, all we need to do is do the groundwork, the legwork, and do these experiments, right? Concave Earth. The shape of the Earth matters, and the reason it matters is because if you don't believe in the truth, you're believing a lie. Okay. Now it might not be an intentional lie. It might just be a bunch of people who don't know what the heck they're talking about, but it is a lie. And as we've seen and as I've shown, especially at the beginning of this video, I hope you like that part. Is you have the Big Bang, you have evolution, you have all these things, and it culminates into this big theory that is this whole different idea. It's a whole nother world. Right? And clearly we know evolution is a lie. We know the Big Bang is a lie. We know all that crap, millions of years. It's a bunch of lies. And the ball Earth is just as much one of those lies as the rest of them. It's just as we need to find out what the shape of the Earth is. And the reason is because God exists, and we should be looking and trying to figure out how He made it. I mean, why do we do science? And some people say, well, it just doesn't matter, Sam. Why do you care? Why do you care? It doesn't matter. Well, the reason it matters to me is because I'm a curious human being. I want to figure out what God made, and so we can give all the more glory. But another reason, like I said, is the lies. If we can prove this right here, if we can prove concave Earth, right, we're disproving the entire idea that God doesn't exist. Okay. Now, I'm not going to say that nobody's going to come up and say that He still doesn't exist, even if they acknowledge that the concave Earth idea. But I think for many people, you're not going to come to the conclusion that we live on inside of a snow globe without believing in God. It's just they're pretty much inseparable, and somebody who would separate those things is being completely in denial. And like I said, people are going to do that anyway. So however you slice it, people are going to believe in things like that because they want to ignore, right? They want to live the way they want. But this will reach people, the concave Earth. If somebody says, hey, look, I'm not on a spinning ball, and the Earth is concave, odds are they're going to believe in God. Odds are it's going to come with it. Now, it's not the first thing. It's not the first thing you should tell that person. Oh, there's this concave. You should believe in God. No, the first thing you tell them is the gospel. But the concave Earth is some very good stuff to get into for people who are scientifically inclined. People want to hear the evidence, right? Those people who don't believe in God, you can tell them the gospel, but if they've got their ears closed to the entire idea because of evolution, all these other lies, you're gonna have to go through some of those lies with them. So but anyways, thank you guys for watching, and you guys have a great day. This has been Why the Shape of the Earth Matters.